And personally, I am thrilled to start my 18th football season here at the Big Ten Network, and the 18th football season alongside Howard Griffith. Howard, the past 2 decades have flown by, and it certainly seems like the past 6 months as well. Doesn't it truly seem like we were just with Michigan as the Wolverines were celebrating their national championship?
Yeah, it really does. It was like right around the corner. Just time has gone so quickly, and now we're right back at Media Day, the official kickoff to it. So I'm looking forward to really talking with the coaches and getting an idea of what their expectations are, and also picking their brains about just how different college football is at this particular point than it was last year at this time.
I think different is kind of the buzzword. How different do you think these media days will feel? You have 4 new teams. That means 4 new coaches. You have an additional day, and you have everything right now that's been going on in the world of college football and college sports over the last couple of months.
Well, obviously, it's going to be different when you have the addition of the 4 new teams from the West Coast. This is a different brand of football they're going to be playing. We get to see, as you mentioned, 4 different coaches and 4 different styles of play. And you think about this, Rick, and I know we've talked a lot about this since the West Coast teams joined the conference, but you look at a place like the USC and UCLA and historic programs, and Washington has had all the success that they've had in Oregon, obviously what they've been able to do. It's a great brand of football that they're bringing in, and it will be interesting to see just how they end up adapting to what the Big Ten Conference is all about, and also how our fan base really embraces the opportunity to go out to the West Coast and spend some time in the sun.
Howard, which players and coaches and teams are you most excited to hear from, and what topics are you most excited to hear being discussed this week in Indianapolis?
Well, I think one of the things, you think about Oregon and Coach Lanning, I think one of the things that he's built because of where he's been in the past, talk about being with Kirby Smart, and you talk about being with Saban, he's built that team to be physical at the point of attack, something that Big Ten teams are accustomed to. So we all remember the Oregon that were flying up and down the field. They still do that, but they're going to be physical at the point of attack. So I'm really interested to see how he continues to adapt and evolve as a coach. And obviously USC and Lincoln Riley, that high-flying offense that they've been able to have, they've made some definite changes on the defensive side of football, with really that whole staff being overhauled. And Dan Lynn, a former Big Ten player at Penn State, going to be leading that outfit on the defensive side. So I think there's some great stories. And I think one of the things you look at as well is, what's Ohio State going to be like this year, right? They've pushed all their chips to the middle of the table, and they understand that it's now or never for them to talk about winning a Big Ten title. Shouldn't say never, but the pressure's on, and the pressure's coming really from within, not externally. So it'll be fun to watch these teams and see how they're acting at Media Day. I'm sure it'll be business as usual, but it's always a great opportunity to pick some coaches and players' brains.
Professional television segue by you there. I did want to touch on the Buckeyes and Ducks, who have been installed by most as preseason favorites. Of course, a monster matchup comes up on October 12th when Ohio State travels to Eugene. Do you also believe that, at least from the preseason perspective, these are the 2 teams that are best developed and suited to perhaps meet again at Lucas Oil Stadium for the championship game in early December?
I think you have to look at them and absolutely consider them. We talked a little bit about Ohio State, and they've made some changes. People going through the transfer portal, they have another quarterback that's been able to have some experiences, put up some numbers. But all the returning starters that came back, and they kind of have said that this is what we want to do. We have unfinished business. I think what's really interesting about both of those organizations or programs, and I think this is going to filter throughout the conference with the teams, how they manage their rosters, right? We talked about the transfer portal, but now, because we have that 12-team playoff, they're going to be playing a lot longer. So the teams that are going to be expecting to compete, I think we'll see a lot of younger players getting a lot more playing time to get them prepared. I think it's a great opportunity for programs to continue to build depth and for people to get experience, because if you have a shot, which they all do at this particular point at the playoffs, they're going to have to be able to manage those rosters properly, because you're going to have to kind of, slow down the workload for a lot of the players that are out there. You don't want to run them into the ground early in the season. You need them to be playing their best at the back end. but they have to get to that point first, right? So there's a couple of different, I think, philosophies of how programs will look at the 12-team playoff and being able to get their team prepared for that. And that's something we haven't seen. Everyone's been, trying to win as many games as they could up front and try to put themselves in position in the polls to be the best that they could be. Now you add, you got to get guys there and get them healthy if you want an opportunity to try to win it all.
It is rare that we discuss Ohio State without discussing Michigan, so let's touch on the Wolverines. What intrigues you most as we get set to hear from Sharon Moore? It is officially his first year, of course, as head coach. Yeah. He inherits the defending national champs, but he was the acting head coach for such a large part of what Michigan did in 2023.
Yeah, you think about what he was able to accomplish, him personally, right? And he was the offensive line coach, he was calling plays, and he was the acting head coach. I don't know that we've ever seen that in college football to this point and win the national title. So it's going to be a much different team. They've got to, overhaul the roster. They've got a lot of new players that are going to have an opportunity to play. And I think you can expect them to take a little bit of a step back. But when I saw them this spring, the intensity and the mentality and the way they were going about their business had not changed. Sure, we heard some music being played, different little style, but I don't think this program is going to be far, at least not as far away as I think people will think they will be. I think this is a team that's going to be able to continue to compete. They just have to have some things go right for them, but you never know. This is a team that's really had obviously a great deal of success over the last several years. So now those young players they're going to be thrust into that starting role now, how do they work and what's going to be the mentality? It's been a workman's-like mentality in that program since Harbaugh's taken over, particularly the last 3 or 4 years. That's kind of the way they've operated. So that's going to still be there, I believe. We just have to go out and see it.
Howard, I know you touched on how the expanded Big Ten could affect what we see each week as we don't have divisions. The top 2 teams get to the championship game, but we also have expansion with the college football playoff. As for the first year, we go to 12 teams in the CFP. We'll hear from some college football playoff executives this week in Indianapolis. What do you think we should be listening for?
I think one of the things is just how the biggest thing for me, Rick, and I touched on this a little earlier, how they manage these games. I think it's going to be important for the teams that have an opportunity to be there. I think that's going to be really important of how you look at the schedule. I think it's no longer can you just break it up into 4 quarters. You're going to have to really expand those and really get a lot more players and people ready. And I think the rosters that are really deep are really set up at this particular point to, I think, have a lot of success. And, I mentioned the transfer portal. Now, all of a sudden, you can tell a young person that, hey, you're going to we need you. Just because you're a number 3 right now doesn't mean you won't be a 2 or a 1 in 6 weeks. You don't know. So I think the way they manage and handle these rosters is going to be really one of the most important things. And I think even looking forward to it, you start thinking about games on campuses. It's going to be really outstanding because you can only imagine, listen, you got 12 teams in there. There are going to be some really great venues that the fan bases are going to have an opportunity to visit. And that's going to be a big part of it. And I think a great part of it as well, it's no longer it wasn't set up to be regionalized, but that's what it kind of turned into. You got more fan bases that are going to have an opportunity to see their teams play for an opportunity to win a championship. And I think that's a big part of what college football needed to get back to. We had kind of lost it a little bit because we just only had a few teams that were dominating and were getting into it every year. And now that's going to be opened up. So we're going to wonder if we'll have any Cinderella stories. I think it'll be a little tougher than in college basketball, but I think we'll have some stories out there when those 12 teams get an opportunity to play and compete.
Awesome stuff, as always, from Howard Griffith. Howard, we appreciate the time. I'll see you down in Indianapolis on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it, buddy.